a.m. We'll call this meeting to order. If you are able, please join me for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. At this point, we will entertain a motion for approval of the regular meeting proposed agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Hulse.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner Gray. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Is there anyone for open forum this morning?
Yes, Chair, we have 3 people signed up for open forum. The first person is Steve Demule, and he's of Palmer Township, and he'll be speaking about the park dedication funds.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Steve Demules, 10874 55th Street in Palmer. I am one of the 3 supervisors for Palmer Township. Years ago, when the Weiss family approached the township to see if we would like to purchase the property, it became very evident that it was more of an undertaking than the township could handle. We had our own park, and at that time, and at times, it is more than enough to manage. The town board was pleased and supportive from the beginning when the county was able to purchase the property for park development. Since that time, the township has continued to give support to the project. So when the township decided to do some major upgrades at our park committee informed the board of the park dedication funds that the county was holding for Palmer Township. It was decided the board would apply for these funds through the county's application process. As we started to get more information on the process, it became clear that with the new county park, those funds would need to be shared. In the application, when it asked for the amount requested, the township decided to ask for $29,850, or the max allowed. We were pretty sure we would now not be getting the full amount since there is a county park and the Palmer Park. To be honest with you, it was never thought that the application was all or nothing deal. We believed that there would be a portion of the funds that would go to both parks. The county and the township have always felt the need for a strong relationship between us. With the township looking at getting no funds, it makes it appear to be more of a one-sided relationship. We are not in the position to have people lobby for millions of dollars at the Capitol, and we have found that applying for grants for our size is very competitive and not very successful for the township. We are asking the county board to allocate a portion of the park dedication funds for our very popular park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Ashley Shabillion, and she's from Big Lake, and will be speaking about the Big Lake School IUP.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Ashley Shabillion. I'm at 22302 County Road 5 Northwest in Big Lake. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, thank you for providing me the opportunity to speak and your service to our county. I'm a parent in the Big Lake School District who for years has spent time every school day waiting on 205th and sometimes on County Road 43. Among concerns I've witnessed are dangerous conditions of through traffic navigating around the parked vehicles, buses being stopped due to the backup of cars, which leads to my middle school and high schooler being late for their routes. Safety concerns have been shared by many in our district, which led to the inclusion of this project and a passage of a bond to improve these issues. In January 23, I joined the Big Lake School Board, and the board and community began having conversations about the planning of an improved pickup and drop-off process in October of 2023. including at posted work sessions and regular board meetings with the item listed on the agenda. There was significant community feedback on options. After 5 months of working through concerns, none of which were brought forward by the neighboring property owner, the board approved the project that brings us here today. Learning an IUP had been put in place with excessive restrictions on the use of school property was surprising and quite confusing. Such a restrictive IUP placed on a school property serving an entire community with the concerns of one property owner who purchased the property 7 years after the district seems to contradict the intent and conditions of Section 16.2 of the Sherburne County Zoning Ordinance relating to IUPs. Today, the most pressing issue is allowing additional access from 205th to allow for improved traffic flow and safety for the start of our school year. However, the entirety of this IUP is against the general public interest in our students' safety. I've been on the Liberty soccer fields as a volunteer soccer coach when a sudden thunderstorm formed. There was an inconsistent response from the coaches on the field, and with no speaker to make a unified announcement, it was obvious how dangerous this could be in providing direction in an emergency. This IUP also prohibits our ability to install lighting and security cameras, which the school board planned to install as soon as funds are available. These restrictions impede public safety, student experience, and our elected school board's ability to meet the needs of our district. I respectfully request that this board rescind this IUP in its entirety, and I thank you for your consideration.
Then our third speaker is Tim Truenbach, and he's also from Big Lake, speaking on the Big Lake Schools IUP.
Good morning. I'm Tim Truenbach, Superintendent of Schools at Big Lake, located at 701 Minnesota Avenue. I just want to take the time to thank you for your service, first and foremost, but I too am speaking about the IUP that has been placed on our school district's property. I want to express my sincere hope that you consider passage today because of what was discussed at the Planning and Zoning, only because September 3rd is coming quick. Super excited about another upcoming school year. We need to have access. We need to have access to that off that 205th onto our property so that we can ensure a safe pickup and drop off for our students. So that's imperative first and foremost. And in addition, much like what Ashley had just mentioned, I would strongly encourage you to consider removal of the IUP altogether. To be honest with you, it's shocking to me, the pieces that are in place there, and to say I was surprised is the least I could say. So I would encourage you to please consider the complete removal, understand it's a process, but also understand that we'd be willing to partner and do our part to help with that process as well. So we stand ready to serve, but once again, thank you for your service, but I just want you to please consider removal of the IUP completely, but more importantly, allow us to get that access off at 205th so that we can start our school safe and in an excited manner like we always do on September 3rd. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and that's it. All right. So the next item on the agenda will be the consent agenda. I am not aware of any changes or anything being removed from consent agenda this morning. In that case, I would entertain a motion to pass consent agenda as indicated in the today's agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the consent agenda as presented.
I second that.
So moved by Commissioner Danlowski, seconded by Commissioner Gray. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. And we are on to announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Just a few brief announcements. First, I'd note the correspondence in your packet for your information. Second of all, we do have a request coming from AMC for possibility of positions for a couple new committees. You saw that on your email. I would note just a little bit of clarification for Commissioner Gray and Commissioner Hulse. The one dealing with tax is about not tax reform, but it's about assessed valuations of large industrial facilities. Dan has been working very hard on that, as you know. So my recommendation to you would be to have a staff appointment and see if we could get Dan on that committee. That's dealing with the assessed valuations of railroads, power plants. It's not the tax reform issues, Andrew, that you were looking at. So I'm hoping that's okay with the board and that we would forward Dan on that
It's a
particular one.
continuation of that DOR thing.
Correct, yeah, I know you've been tracking it a lot, Greg, and if you want to do it, that's fine, but I just think it'd be good for Dan to represent us. He's having
Got a better
the
handle on
assessment
it.
background, yeah, so. Second of all, just a note on the open forum comments, maybe in the future, we should probably reread our purpose for them, which is, to discuss things not on the agenda, but I would just note for the board information, a couple things. The IUP application is specific to one amendment. It's not to rescind the entire thing, so that muddies the water. I'll call the superintendent after the meeting, and we can set up a time to discuss if there's interest in looking at other conditions of the original underlying IUP, but their application was in fact only for one item and not others. But perhaps as we get forward, every new board looks at their board rules. And again, this may be why we have to look at the open forum and how it works, because there was a public hearing on one of these items already at the Planning Commission, and it was discussed again today. So that creates some incongruity that we want to talk to the board about so we don't find ourselves in hot water in the future. And I think with that, that was about the only major announcements.
Okay, thank you very much. So the first item on our regular agenda will be consider approval to proclaim August 2024 as Child Support Awareness Month. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. My name is Christy Hermanson, and I'm the Child Support Supervisor with Health and Human Services. And I have before you today a proclamation declaring August as Child Support Awareness Month. In Sherburne County, we have 12 child support officers, a case aide, and a lead worker and myself dedicated to our mission, which I will read for you, is enhancing the lives of children by promoting the involvement of parents to provide financial support while delivering child support services with equitable and quality customer care in accordance with state and federal law. The work our unit does each day is in partnership with the Sherburne County Attorney's Office. It's through the support of Kathleen Haney and her team that we are able to effectively carry out this mission. Here is the proclamation that I'm requesting that you approve. Whereas children are Minnesota's most valuable resource and citizens of Sherburne County have a responsibility to promote and nurture their well-being, and whereas Child Support Awareness Month reminds us that children need the emotional and financial support of both parents to reach their full potential, whereas in 2023, Sherburne County child support workers had an annual caseload of 2,990 and collected $10,745,066. And child support services have a direct impact on helping families meet children's basic needs. And whereas child support professionals help families work toward becoming and remaining self-sufficient and financially stable by creating and modifying child support orders and collecting and dispersing child support on behalf of children. And whereas during Child Support Awareness Month, all citizens are encouraged to look to the future of our state and our children and work together to ensure their success. Now, therefore, Sherburne County Board of Commissioners, I am requesting that you proclaim August 2024 as Child Support Awareness Month.
Thank you. At this point, I would entertain a motion to that effect.
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval.
Commissioner Trowbridge moves.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
Mr. Danilowski seconds. Is there any further discussion?
Just a comment, Mr. Chair, thank you. Just thank you for being here. Thank you for the work you do on behalf of our kids. I'm glad that we do these at the beginning of meetings so people it helps the public understand the depth and the breadth of what we do as commissioners. So our support of families and children, part of our HHS responsibilities, and so just appreciate that you're here and that we've highlighted this today to support our children and families.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Well said and totally agree. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
You bet. Outstanding. All right, well then, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next, we are going to have an update from Xcel Energy.
Outstanding.
Good morning.
Good morning. Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Commissioners, thank you for allowing us to be present here today. I was fortunate to meet most of you, I think, on my first week on the job back in April, beginning of May, and I appreciate being invited here today. Advance the slide. Xcel Energy has been a national leader in wind energy since 2005. Since the early 1990s, we've supported energy efficiency and offer a leading portfolio of programs with options for all types of customers. We've led the industry in emissions reductions efforts with our generating plants, helping our states meet their clean air requirements. We have several leading demonstrations and pilots underway to test advanced technologies, and our work restoring power after storms has been recognized as among the best in the industry. Next slide. We're committed to serving our customers in the state with extremely high reliability while bringing them cleaner energy and keeping bills low. Next slide, please. Our work is focused around Xcel Energy's 3 corporate priorities: lead the clean energy transition, enhance the customer experience, and keep customer bills low. Next slide. For more than a decade, we've pursued a successful strategy to transition to clean energy. Our clean energy goals fall into 3 large sectors of the economy: electricity, natural gas use in buildings, and transportation. We are empowering customers by providing choices that meet their evolving needs and interests and make it easy to do business with us. Energy affordability is a top priority for our customers, and it is a focus for us. Next slide. Thank you. Our plans call for driving even more significant carbon reductions in the next decade. As you can see on the slide, we've had a 57% reduction since 2005. In the coming years, we anticipate adding thousands of megawatts of wind and solar power to our system, incorporating both natural gas and storage resources to help balance high levels of renewables, supporting strategic electrification of certain end uses to further reduce emissions in other areas of the economy, continue to rely on carbon-free nuclear plants, retiring additional coal units or changing their operations to minimize emissions affordably and reliably, and making critical investments in supportive infrastructure such as transmission. Our residential customers' average monthly electric bill has been less than the state and natural average for more than a decade. Now I'm going to turn it over to Tricia Duncan, and she's going to share with the updates that you had requested around Sherco Unit 2 decommissioning updates, some economic development updates, and some updates around Sherco 3 solar.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, commissioners. Sherco 2 decommissioning update, as you'll see on the slide here, there's a few things that have happened in the last 6 months. First of being the permanently shutting down the Unit 2 in December of 2023. After retiring the coal plant in Unit 2 in 2023, Xcel plans to retire the remaining coal-fired units in 2026 and 2030, marking the company's final full exit from coal. Sherco Unit 2 will become a synchronous condenser, and which will help stabilize voltage on the electric grid. Next slide, please. In regards to economic development, there's been a lot of activity, as you may know, going on in the area. We've had 2 land sales that closed in Becker. Both will be used for future data centers, including Elk River Technologies and Microsoft. The 2 data center developments, there's a need for additional processed water and discharge infrastructure, in which we are helping to explore the additional options in coordination with the data centers and the community. Next slide. And lastly, in regards to Sherco Solar 3, we received our written order from the state in just recently, July 31st of 2024. As we exit the use of coal by 2030, investments in solar, battery storage, and new transmission lines at the site will help deliver a clean energy future for our customers and communities. Once complete in 2026, the 710 megawatt Sherco Solar project will generate enough electricity to power more than 150,000 homes each year and fully replace the capacity of the coal-fired Unit 2. Xcel Energy will also build a 10 megawatt, 100-hour battery storage facility at this site. The storage system will enhance electric reliability by storing wind and solar to distribute during periods of lower production. The proposed Minnesota Energy Connection transmission line will carry wind and solar from the portions of southwest Minnesota to the Becker area to serve customers throughout the region and into the Twin Cities metro area. Lastly, save the date for our community breakfast, as you are all invited to attend and have participated in the past. Thank you for that. It will be at the Monticello Community Center on October 24th from 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. With that, we'll take any questions that you may have.
Have any questions?
Yeah, just a couple quick questions, if you don't mind. You mentioned the total being able to replace the capacity of the coal plants. I forget by what year did you say that? It was like one bullet in there. And I'm assuming that was with solar, is that correct?
Go ahead, Michelle.
I believe that was.
1 second.
I just want to make sure I heard it correctly.
It's within the next 4 years, I know that. 2026.
2026.
When the solar will be complete.
And I guess my question on that is that at plate capacity or is that at generated capacity?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind just pulling
Absolutely.
up
we
and sending me an
can follow up
email,
with you. Yep.
that would be helpful. And the other question that I have, if we look at the rates chart, the rates chart shows Excel obviously still well below the national average and the non-Excel electric bills in Minnesota, but there is a climb there, and I'm just curious if there's a way to show, how much is there a portion of that increase that's due to moving to the renewables? Are the renewables more expensive versus traditional generating types? And if so, I'm just another question, just offline. If you could just email me and let me know, what's helping to drive some of that slope. I would be interested in that as well.
Thanks for that question. We can definitely get you that breakdown. And to answer your question just a little bit, I think it depends on the market and where the market plays within.
Oh, for sure.
In relation to what the megawatt hours are for generation type facilities.
And realizing, and just prefacing this by saying, you're at the behest of what the legislature does, and you have to make these transitions based on what the legislature is asking. So I understand it completely. I'm just looking for some data behind it is all. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anyone else?
One thing, Sherco Solar 2 is decommissioned right now. Sherco Solar 1 the coal plant, unit number 1, that's decommitted right now? Is that still on the way it is? It's not generating?
I don't know if that's back online or not. I'll have to follow up with Michelle.
Because I think the last time I talked to Michelle, they weren't even using Sherco, or the coal-fired unit number 1 because it wasn't needed. So the only one that was running was number 3, if I remember right.
I think that's when we were there in April.
All right.
Mr. Bessel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. With the board's permission, the information that they prepare, if you're okay, come back to all of us since it was discussed in an open forum. I think all the commissioners should probably get the information. You okay with that? Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Outstanding. And anyone else? I have one thing. I'll be pestering you guys in the future because after we toured, I was able to tour a waste-to-energy plant in Hillsborough County, Florida, which has really piqued my interest in waste-to-energy for all the things it can do for us, base load and actually reduction of landfill. So that's something I'm going to be trying to bring into the conversation and into the ETAC plan. So I'll be pestering you guys in the future about that, but we can talk about that later.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So nothing else. Thank you very much for coming. It's always good to see you. And like I say, we'll be conversing down the road.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to consider approval of Vonco residential well sampling.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm actually going to have June Volkers, our hydrogeologist, present on this.
Good morning, everybody. I am requesting the board to consider the approval of sampling of residential wells down gradient of Vanco 1. It's sampling we've been doing for several years, and we want to sample the same 11 wells that we did last year and the year before that. So to this date, there has not been any detections in these residential wells. And we are hoping to do a fall sampling event again this year. So Houston Engineering will be doing the sampling for us again. They will be doing the sampling event after we request approval from the board and also from the residents.
Okay. Here. So at this point, we'd entertain a motion to continue the work we've been doing.
Mr. I'll
Moved by
second.
Commissioner Hulse and seconded by Commissioner Danilowski, I think. Okay, we got that. Any further discussion?
I did have a question. In regards to the 11 wells, refresh my memory, being as I see that like there's another house that's on the bottom of the cul-de-sac that is in vicinity, why those 11 choices of well testing as versus a radius, and anything in that radius gets tested?
These wells, the little green dots, those are the ones that are down gradient from the landfill. So the groundwater flows from the landfill towards the river.
And it misses those houses that are right next door to those pins?
Commissioner, what well are you, what house?
The one that's to the, you see the pin that's at the, you see where the cul-de-sac is? Where the half circle?
Cul-de-sac here?
Yes. And then you see the house that is right there at the edge, and then you're testing 2 wells right next to it. Why are we not testing what looks to be in direct flow?
Because we're picking up this well right here. We can certainly include this house right here if we can.
I guess I was just curious, why do we
Yeah.
pick,
Yeah,
and why are some that look like they're in that flow area not tested?
Because what we're attempting to do is this house, this house, this house, and this well is screened at a different interval than this house right here. So we're capturing an entire,
Like different.
if you look at
Yep.
horizontal, you know,
okay.
the vertical.
So you feel you're catching everything that is flowing down? by the-
Exactly. We're capturing the wells that are screened at a superficial aquifer and then a deeper aquifer.
Okay.
So that's our rationale for these 11 wells. But if you would like, we can certainly reach out and we can see what the additional cost would be to pick up this well right here.
I was just wanting to double check. You seem to be confident that you're, by what you pointed out to be the tested wells, you feel confident you would detect anything through that downflow. So if you're confident of that, I'm fine. I just wanted to clarify and understand why.
No, that's a good question, Commissioner.
Anything else, Simon?
And as June indicated, with your approval, we will reach out to all the residents, gain their permission, and we're looking at roughly October for our consultant to come out and do the residential well testing.
And this is something that's done yearly, and they're used to getting that
We've
contact.
been doing this since 2012.
You use the same consultant every year?
No, we have not.
Okay,
We've been using Houston Engineering for the past maybe 7 years,
okay,
10 years roughly.
all right.
And where do you get the panel of things you're testing from? What draws out?
These are the same constituents that are tested at the monitoring wells at Vanco. So we're testing for the same exact parameters.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so having resolved this is geologically sound, all of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Wanted to make sure the public knew that this is all.
Well, that's good. Yeah, it is. But yeah, it's all based on the geology, the hydrogeology of the area, which
Thank you.
we've taken care
Thank
of.
you.
All right. Next, we are going to consider approval of interim use permit for recreational activity consider approval of a conditional use permit for personal structure. Noel Lewandowski.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
This property is up by Big Elk Lake in the Agricultural River Overlay District, and the Planning Commission recommended approval with the 4 conditions and the findings of fact.
Thank you very much. I guess we'd entertain a motion to that effect at this time.
So move.
Moved by Commissioner Gray,
I'll second.
seconded by Commissioner Phobie. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much. And now we are going to consider approval of an interim use permit for recreational activity replacing permit number 61123 Big Lake School District.
So the Planning Commission had extensive discussion on this. They recommended approval of the conditional use permit with the 11 conditions and the findings of fact.
Thank you. I think we'll, once again, it's important to note at this, we are going to be looking at the very narrow request for the easement. That's what we're going to be looking at, the egress and of the property. So at this point, we'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve the proposed amendment to the interim use permit as recommended by staff and the Planning Commission, but without the additional conditions numbered 10 and 11, related to fencing and requesting from MnDOT a speed study.
Okay, is there a second for that?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner Gray. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'm curious as to the reason for the modification to what was recommended by the Planning Commission.
The reason for the modification is, number one, the school is not the authority to ask for a speed study. That is the local road authority of the township. That would be on them to bring that forward. And in regards to the fencing, that's a $50,000 expense to taxpayers, and I don't think at this time it warrants the fencing. The school will be the one to figure out going forward. And there's a very good buffer zone from the neighbor to that road. That's my reasoning.
And is there any discussion from Lynn? Do you have any input on that, on the issue with the fence?
It was discussed at length with Planning Commission. They made the recommendations. It's ultimately up to the county board on their decision.
There is about a 20-foot vegetated buffer on that edge that will be able to be maintained by the school, whether it's high grasses along with the trees that are already there. So there's going to be a buffer there, and I just think one of the main things we have to be cognizant of here, this is actually under the jurisdiction of ISD 27 School Board. So we don't want to be necessarily putting burdens on another elected group, in my opinion.
Yeah, the property was, they purchased in 2002. The adjacent owner was 2009. I believe that, he knew what was going there. I don't think we need a fence, and I agree with Greg. There's plenty of buffer there. If the school, if they future develop this and they want to put a fence in at that time and they can bond for it, to throw this burden on them at the end, I think is asking a lot.
And Mr. Chair, I really appreciate the work that our Planning Commission does. It's not often that we question or look into this, but those 2 items, definitely the fence seemed a little egregious to me after reading through the whole narrative and talking with a few locals on the situation. But yeah, definitely appreciate the work that they do. And going forward, I would like us to, as came in open forum, talk how we cannot be back in this place. the narrative of the Planning Commission was lengthy and caused me to pause more than I usually do with reading those narratives. So I'm just going to leave it at that today. I appreciate the work. It's very valuable to our county. But I think that with these two, we've landed on a good solution for this today.
So just one question. So the IUP that we're modifying with this, with the changes that you made, what year did that IUP go in?
2017,
And it went in 2017.
yes.
And I believe was amended in 2019?
Mhm.
Any further discussion? All those, well, did you not want a roll call vote? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, none. All those, motion passes. And so the next we'll be moving on to is consider approval.
Mr. Chair, one quick, I do agree though with Commissioner Phobie. I would like to see this come back and figure out how to look at removing the conditions that sit on this IUP. The school district definitely needs to develop their property in a way that serves the needs of the district. And so I would be supportive of bringing that back as
The
well.
attorney, please.
Commissioner, there is always the opportunity for the school district to ask for further amendments. Presently, in order to even have the sports fields there under our ordinance, it does require an IUP. So if you got rid of the whole IUP, you would also get rid of the opportunity to have the fields there. So, I mean, that is certainly something that can be brought forward by the school district for
I'm not
consideration.
looking to get rid of the IUP necessarily, but some of the conditions on it.
Right, and that would be a request that could easily be initiated by the school district.
And that's what I meant. I'm sorry if it was a misunderstanding that the IUP would go away, but the conditions need to be looked at.
And I guess just one further comment on it. I think it would behoove all parties involved to do that sooner rather than later, so that we're not trying to modify these things as you're going into construction. So I think, and I did have a discussion with an individual on exactly that. So I think bringing this back sooner rather than later would be a smart move.
And I do think that is the school district's plan. They are just trying to get this situation taken care of. As they had referred to, school is starting on September 3rd. And so once they get that, I think that's their plan, is to bring it back.
Okay. Any further discussion?
No, I think we're done now.
Yeah, all right. All those in favor?
No, we already did that.
Oh, yeah,
We already
did.
voted.
Yeah,
Don't vote again.
I lost track as we kept talking about it. You're right. Okay, now we are actually on to the thing I talked about before. Consider approval of a conditional use permit for a cellular tower replacing permit 55105 Vertical Bridge 53 Assets LLC.
And this is in Big Lake Township. Planning Commission recommended approval with the 7 conditions and the findings of fact.
Okay, would entertain a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Commissioner Danilowski,
I'll second that.
seconded by Commissioner Gray. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. No further discussion on that. Consider approval to amend the Sherburne County zoning ordinance number 264, amend section 17.5 subsurface sewage treatment system.
So the planning and zoning staff has updated the SSTS subsurface sewage treatment system ordinance in order to make sure we're in compliance with state rules. It was reviewed by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. We asked for the townships, and in this case, we're required to ask the cities for comments. So we did take all comments that came in, and the county attorney's office worked with us on this ordinance, and they have reviewed it as well.
Okay. Is there, we guess we'd entertain a motion at this point?
So move.
Moved by Commissioner Gray. Second.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Danilowski. Any further discussion?
Yes, I just wanted to say, I do know that there was a lot of conversation around this one. Planning and zoning went out and visited with the townships and stuff to get their input. So I think that it went through a very good process to get to the point of what they're recommending.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, and could you speak a bit to, I know Baldwin had some strong objections to things, but was this prior to their incorporation?
This would be prior to their incorporation, but it also has to do with, we require a building permit for if you need a deck or an accessory structure. We want to ensure that if you're putting in a new structure, that there's still room for septic system, that the current system's working. You don't put in a new accessory structure and then find out your septic system fails in a year and you have nowhere to put it because you just put in a new accessory. The county's had those rules in effect since the early to mid 1990s, and so we are going to be keeping that in. We're proposing to keep that in.
And how, now that they are incorporated, or soon to be, how does that change for them?
Under Minnesota state rules, both the townships and the cities, in the case of septic systems, have to be as restrictive or more restrictive than the county.
Okay. And I do know that for the city of Big Lake, they have handed over anything to do with septics, because there still are septics in the city, to the county. And the county is the authority that regulates what it is that goes on with those septic systems.
Okay.
I'm correct on that, right?
You are correct, and we also modified our grant program and I believe our loan program to where if you want to hook up to the city sewer and water and you currently have a septic system that's failing, that may be an option. Yes. So we do try to work with people, whether they're in the township or in the city, to find what's the best option for the individual property owner.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Then the discussion? All right, hearing no more discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion carries. And then our next item is going to be consider Palmer Township's request for allocation of park dedication fee funds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Andrew and Gina are here as well, should you have any questions. Keisha, can you go to, on page 210, the chart for the board? It's in the board packet, but not the public. It's kind of ironic that you've had 2 requests now in the last several months, and before that, it was probably several years, Gina, since we've had any requests.
It was a while, yeah.
I think everybody was waiting for the Parks and Trails Advisory Committee to get up and running and then throw some good challenges to them. But it did allow us to revisit this policy, and I think in the future, since the board wants to talk about how we're funding parks anyhow, it would be a good time for you to look at this policy as part of that. But the current policy, which you affirmed recently with the Baldwin request, is what you see in front of you here. 25% of the park dedication fees are allowed to be used countywide. 75% are required to be used within the jurisdiction from which the fees were collected, in this case, Palmer Township. Nothing in statute indicates that they are dedicated to the township. They are at the discretion of the township. That's a county policy, and it varies by county. You, or at least previous boards, have made a prioritization, and you can see it in the lower area. Keisha's going to fill in the screen with the lower box so you can see it. So your priorities have been regional parkland acquisition, right-of-way acquisition, trail development, parkland development, and then getting down into the township fee area or township areas. I would also note that under statute, that this cannot be used for ongoing operations and maintenance or replacement. It's for new. A little bit different than Baldwin, this request, in your staff's opinion, does qualify for use of these funds. In Baldwin's case, we had some questions whether they would even qualify under statute. But consistent with your policy and your recent decision, the Parks and Trails Advisory Committee recommended denial based upon your priority. As Mr. Demuse noted, in this case, the funds are earmarked and dedicated to be used for the acquisition of the Morehouse property at the regional park at Bede, Hahaka, Omashkush, Zagaagans Regional Park. That being said, if you remember, and I didn't present the slide, you have 3 options as a policymaking body. One is you can affirm your policy and say, we respect your request, but the funds are earmarked for higher priorities under our policy. 2 is you can deviate from your policy, and there can be a rational basis for that. And then after hearing Mr. Demuth's comments, which were not clear in the application, that maybe they didn't intend to present it as an all or nothing, I do think it's within the board's discretion to consider the differences with the Baldwin decision a few months ago. One is that we believe the township request does meet statute. And two, that we will continue to acquire park dedication fees in the future from Palmer, at least until such time as they may decide to take over their own land use decisions. That being said, we will look at fees this fall, and you may want to discuss this as well under your fee discussion as well as parks funding. But it is within the board's discretion to consider a partial utilization of the funds for a town with an acknowledgement that all future park and trails dedication fees would go first and foremost then to make your parks department whole. We would probably recommend that that be added at some point within this policy in the future. Again, we haven't had this issue for many years, and all of a sudden we have it twice. But where Baldwin was slightly different, where you're no longer collecting the fees and there was a legal issue, I think here, if the board under your policy discussion wanted to say, okay, these fees were collected over multiple years. 3 years ago, we didn't even have this regional park. It's reasonable to earmark a certain amount of them to the town. You would be shorting the Morehouse property acquisition, which we could cover internally, with, in the minutes, a note that all future parks and trails dedication fees coming from Palmer would go to make your budget whole first and foremost. So we don't end up with a similar request in 3 years. And, let's say we have $10,000 in that account and they say, we want the 10 now. You say, well, wait a minute, we did this 3 years ago. So I think those are your three options. Follow your policy, deviate from it, or maybe consider someplace in between.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just to follow on a little bit, so the discussions that I've had last night, it seems to me that this was something of a miscommunication. I do know that someone from the Palmer Park Board inquired at one point about a year or so ago just how much was in the funds, but I don't believe actually said, hey, we've got some use for this funds, right? Just made an inquiry about how much was in there. I think, and I'm reading a little bit into this, but I think in their minds that meant that there was a potential for using those funds. And then I think on our side we never had a formal request, right? So we earmarked them for the way our policy goes. So I'm kind of in favor of the third option that Administrator Messel laid out in sort of splitting it a bit, and because it is, I don't feel right about the all or nothing approach. I think they've made these expenditures in good faith, and I do think we need to make it clear on what our policy is in the future, so that we don't constantly get put in this situation, so that all the townships understand how this will be prioritized. But I think in this particular case, it would be, in my mind, appropriate to kind of split it and then figure out a way to make our parks piece of it whole.
Yeah. Well, since I've read this and talked with everyone involved in this, I struggle with this situation all because as you know, I'm a huge supporter of the parks countywide. Whether it's a township park or a county park, city park, it doesn't matter. I think it's vital to all of the county that we have a viable park system. My thought is, in 18 years of township government that I was in before that, $30,000 to a township is a huge amount of money. $30,000 to the county is not so. It's all money, it's all relevant, it all adds up. But I agree with Andrew. I think we need to split this in some fashion. What is equitable, I don't know yet. But I think most of the funds that were generated, park fees, were probably generated long before Two Inlets was even a viable park. And I think that's what we need to do. Split this up in some fashion. I don't know what we can do in that relationship. Maybe we get some guidance from Bruce in that, but I do think, though, because if you've ever visited Palmer Park on a Monday night, Tuesday night, whatever night it is, there's things going on there. This park is used immensely, and the township has done a tremendous job of keeping that park up, maintaining it, and now they're expanding it. And I think they've already done that. I think in the fees that they're asking for is not unreasonable at all. I mean, for me, it would be all to give it all to them, but I don't think we're in that position. I think to be equitable, I think it goes to both, but at least I think it should be split up. Palmer Township deserves part of this.
So my question for, would be, as a point of order, if we want to do a split on this, we would probably have to table it at this point and then move it down? Or no, we can do it?
No, you
without
can just do it.
tabling?
And I think my recommendation was, the 25% goes regionally. So of the remaining amount, whatever it is, then just, I think Mr. Demuse had suggested a 50-50 split, which is probably, I'm guessing, what, $15,000?
We'll take it.
Yeah, and then I think in the minutes, though, if you do make that motion, the minutes should reflect, though, with the expectation that future park dedication fees go first and foremost to replenish the park budget. And again, that gets us back to whole for the Morehouse property, and essentially we'll cover it internally. That also gives you time to revise your policy.
I would, instead of just, I think I would go just a little bit more on the Palmer side. I think me personally, I'd go like around 20 for this, and then the remainder can go to us, and we'll figure out how to make it whole.
Mr. Philby, you had a?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would like to pause with the last piece and allow more discussion for that. I think this is something we need discussion as a board on going forth, what it means. So I don't want to lock us in with this motion to future park dedication fees. I'd like us to open that whole can of worms and have a discussion with it, so to speak.
Mr. Danilowski, you had a comment?
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Chair. I think in regards to what Mr. Demule spoke to also, that this regional, the county park is also in their township area. And they were very good about seeing the advantages and knowing that they would not be able to develop this park to the extent it would need to be for the land mass, and moved it to the county, which I think was very good of them to do, to not let the opportunity slip by. So I think that they're supportive of the development of the county park as well. But I think they recognize most township parks are utilized greatly, and they're also utilized by other areas, not just township residents. They're utilized by other communities. I know Big Lake Township Park is utilized by a lot of the city residents, the school district. It just gets used a lot. So I applaud your guys' development of your township park. I think they're really important. And I'm open to some form of a chair.
So it wasn't clear if Commissioner Fobies was tabling the entire option. You don't have a motion on the table yet. Or if you just want to hold that second piece till later and just say, move to approve X amount for Palmer Township and direct staff to come back in a future discussion. There'll actually be two discussions, parks funding and fees, which you don't even have to direct us. So if you want to just split it and get it off the table today, otherwise you could table the entire item. We'd have a workshop in August, come back in September and discuss this. But I will tell you, we're already going to talk about fees and park funding in other places.
Yeah, and I think to Commissioner Fobi's point, I think we need to really look at how we create something that is, that the townships are aware of how the policy will go going forward. And we are going to be put in this situation again, so.
Yeah, and as your administrator, I feel it's incumbent upon me to make it clear. First of all, this hasn't been an issue for boards for a long time because there's not been a request. Also, we have townships that don't have any county assets, so it's not an issue. The fact that two came up is good for us to review it, but I would also try to defend staff a little bit and say I don't think there's a lack of institutional knowledge about the policy and sharing that information when asked. So when you update this, however you do it, then I think at a SCAT meeting, we'll go out and clarify it and say, this is it going forward. But again, since it just doesn't come up very often, it is usually a call and from it's a partner and, they say, hey, how much is in the fund? And, do you have planned uses for it? So
Yeah, and I by no means think that staff, I think that they do an amazing job with the directions that are given.
Yeah.
I think they would appreciate some better refining.
Yeah, and I don't think we gave it to you again, but I believe the policy, when it was last formally communicated, was 2012 in a formal letter. The policy's been on the book since 2006, but we found a formal communication to all townships back in 2012. My only caveat is this. Next time a township official says, well, way back in 2004, something happened, you say, memories don't go back that far, because they're not remembering 2012. So if Steve asked for something from 2004, you just ignore it, so, you know.
You think I'd remember?
Steve remembers it.
First off, you probably never ignore Steve Demules. He's not going to let that happen. And to me, this is not any inflection on what staff has done. I applaud what they're doing all the time. The acquisition of the last Morehouse property and 2 inlets is huge, but to make whole again Palmer Township and what they've invested, I think is huge. I agree with Andrew that we should probably bump this to 20, if nothing else. I also agree with Lisa that we need to address it at a later date in how we're going to do this. So that being said, I'll make a motion that we give Palmer Township $20,000 of the park dedication fees in lieu of the $29,000 that's on the books. That will stay with the county. I also will make a motion that we continue to do the policy at a later date. Split them? Okay, we'll split them. We'll do the first one first.
You really don't have to do the direction of policy. It's coming back anyhow. So just
Okay.
do the motion.
Do
make
the
it
motion,
clean.
all right.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Second, motion by Commissioner Gray, seconded by Commissioner Holtz. I mean, I think it's a good thing, and we're just reaching at a point, I think, in development where we're getting to the point where we need to relook at these things, and all this is making it.
Bring it to the forefront.
Yeah, bringing it to the forefront so we can get working on this. Is there any other discussion on the?
Mr. Chair, one comment. I do want to give a shout out to our Parks and Trails Committee. I mean, this is the process we've given to them, that this does go before them. I also appreciate their work, and for them wrestling, I wasn't able to be at that meeting, but did read the minutes from that, so I appreciate that they wrestled with it. Tough situation for us, but we will go forward and we'll be better about this moving forward.
Commissioner Adamowski?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a clarification in the motion. The motion was to give Palmer Township $20,000 of the $29,000
And change, that's
and
there.
change that is in the Parks Fund, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I
That's
clarified that.
exactly it. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries. And we can move on to our, receive the Great River Regional Library 2025 budget information.
And just a postmortem as our folks get up for the library. Two things. One is, Dan and I are going to remind you now, there's a $20,000 hole in your parks budget, so that's our job. Two is, Steve's going to go home happy that he missed his meeting this morning, because it was probably a trip well worth taking. So, thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Will you be advancing the slides for us, or do you want us to do it from here?
The right side, yeah.
Here.
Turn it on for you.
I might be able to get it. Oh, that was on. There it goes. Got it. Just had to get you out of your chair, I guess. Sorry. Good morning. I'm Karen Punsak, Executive Director for Great River Regional Library. I have with me.
Good morning. I'm Amy Anderson. I'm the Associate Director of Accounting for Great River Regional Library.
And we appreciate time today to present again to Sherburne County on library services. We come twice each year, once at the beginning of the year to talk about library activities, and then we come at this time of the year to talk about our budget process. Great River Regional Library is a great partnership with Sherburne County being one of our 6 counties that we serve. We're fortunate to have Commissioner Phoebe on our Great River Regional Library Board, and Jane Dietz is chair of the Great River Regional Library Board representing Elk River, and we also have Laura Kangas from Sherburne County on that board. And as part of our 6-county partnership, our agreement says we'll have our budget set by August 1st each year, and our finance committee helps form that. So the finance committee includes the 6 commissioners, one from each county on the board, and then this year, Jane Dietz, as president, also served on that committee. And our 6-county agreement says we have a funding formula between the 6 counties. So each county pays 1/3 based on their population, 1/3 on net tax capacity, and 1/3 on the borrower numbers, so the people actually using the library each year. So those dollars shift between the counties, and that's a typical part of our budget process. We're fortunate to have a very strong strategic plan. This has been in place and will be updated next year. But theory of change for Great River is we are the place where people in our communities find and trusted information and learn how to use it so that they can thrive in their communities. And a big part of our strategic plan is a commitment to access, making sure people have the ability to get not only books, but broadband connections and digital equity services across our 6-county region. And then we also have really leaned into library awareness and built new partnerships and tried to amplify services across all of the 6 counties. The part of the partnership includes an agreement with the 32 communities that have libraries. Those communities provide the buildings that actually serve as our library spaces, and Great River provides the people, the computers, and the books and technology, all the databases and underpinnings of our website. So it's a very complex relationship among basically 39 different entities and 40 if you count the city of Sartell and the locker there. So it's interesting to see how it all comes together at budget time. But we're really pleased with how this year's budget shaped up. We're really excited, and Amy will tell you a little bit more about how we've shaped the 2025 budget for this year.
This year, our board adopted the 2025 budget at their meeting on July 16th. The slide you're looking at currently displays the county contributions over time from 2015. Sherburne County is represented by the green line. To keep county contributions as flat as possible, budget surplus dollars from the 2024 fiscal year were rolled forward. Additional reserves were also incorporated, and together these amounts total $622,744, which equates to 5.91% of our revenue lines. This pie chart breaks down the library system's revenue budget by funding source. Overall, county contributions will make up 70% of the overall budget in 2025. Our largest 3 expense categories are personnel cost, library materials, and service and equipment contracts. The remaining expense budget includes technology, software, and equipment, and delivery and supply costs. Sherburne County will contribute $1,434,459 in 2025, which is a reduction of $29,704 from 2024. Some recent highlights from Sherburne County Libraries include a community mosaic project in Becker, the continuation of Tech Tuesdays for seniors at the Big Lake Public Library, and in Elk River, a teen-focused writing group to give high school and junior high students a chance to work on their creative writing skills. The library system's overall budget for 2025 is $10.53 million, which is an overall increase of 3.22% from 2024. The budget continues to support the popular Wi-Fi to Go program, which is a program of hotspots available for individuals to check out for a 1 or 3 week time period, and our fines-free policy for materials checkout to guarantee access to all Sherburne County citizens. We want to thank you for your continued support of the library and its services, and we're happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions?
I just wanted to say thank you so much. Libraries are so important in our communities, and I appreciate everything you do to try to bring those services to each of our counties and the communities that do have libraries in them. And I know it's always challenging when it comes to budget times, but thank you for finding a way to not have any increase in the budget for the library services.
Yeah, we've been trying to strategically spend down our reserves over the last several years, so that's a main factor. At some point, we'll have to wean ourselves off of one-time money, but we haven't quite hit that point yet, so.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Great. Any further comments? Mr. Missel?
Oh, just a note, the numbers that we have in our budget spreadsheet are slightly different than what the library presented. So Dan and I will follow up after the board meeting and make sure we have the most correct numbers, so.
Thank you.
If not, we have a secret weapon that we can go to, so.
Yeah, I think you guys asked for preliminary numbers, and then the board decided to use additional reserves after that, so.
Yeah, I'm not complaining, 14,000
Yeah.
14,000 to our favor, but
They're
they just
even
spent
better.
20,000, so I'm still down 6 for the day, so.
Those numbers are even better. So thank you for being here. And also just, I'm always impressed with the partnerships that you work on. You know, they partnered with our Parks Department. They were out in Grams Park during our opening, putting up a story stroll. And so they really try to support the whole county, even though our branches are over on the west side. It's really, we work hard to cover the whole county and just appreciate all the work. So, and really a shout out to Jane and Laura, who are great board members on behalf of Sherburne. So,
Yeah, we have 3 very strong Sherburne County representatives on our 15-member board, and we've been fortunate to have some long-term board members because there's been a lot of new people and new faces this year. So thank you for being one of those people, Commissioner Philby.
thank you. Okay, thank
Any
you.
further discussion? Well, thank you very much for coming in. Thank you. So we will be at Commissioner Correspondence, Committee Reports, Upcoming Meetings, Future Agenda Items. Who wants to start?
I
Commissioner
can go
Halls.
fast. So for me, it's been kind of a slow couple of weeks. Just I had eye surgery right after our last board meeting, so I'm just now getting back to driving. So it's been a little bit slow. But the main 2 things I want to talk about is just we had our constituent coffee with Mayor Dietz on Saturday. Met with a couple dozen constituents. Had good discussions. Also had an opportunity to discuss with him how Elk River's budget planning process is going, and they're finalizing that. They're in the process of finalizing that as of last night. And then the only other thing I just want to remind everybody of is Night to Unite tonight. I think most of us have meetings set up in our communities, so it'll be a good evening to get out and see lots of people enjoying their neighborhoods.
Outstanding, thank you. Next.
I'll go. I will also be quick. We all participated in budget workshops after our last meeting. I dropped in at the Community Corrections Picnic, which was fun to celebrate and be with them. The State Community Health Services Advisory Committee, most known as SHAC, hosted a coffee conversations and considerations on opioids and fentanyl use in the state and in our counties. Central Minnesota Council on Aging Board met, and then a couple meetings with Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Services, meeting with DEED, and also with our executive board. And that's it.
First off, did you remember your book this week?
I did, got it right here. And now I'm going to also take a picture of my other update to get it to Keisha for last time. I had attended, of course, the county budget workshop meeting. I unfortunately had to miss the Community Corrections Picnic. I always enjoy that event, but I was down in the cities at the Transportation Alliance meeting. Came back, had the administrator's evaluation interview, attended the township board meeting. Also had a CMRP meeting, Central Mississippi River Partnership. We are moving forward on that. There's a lot of exciting things happening in the transition to becoming a nonprofit, so that is being worked on. And also, as I reported last time, the $1 million that we got to help offset the cost of the environmental study. That was exciting to get from anything to help offset that $2 million cost is much appreciated. And had the Center Care Housing Cohort kickoff meeting. This is something that Center Care has pulled together for the St. Cloud area, and being as Sherburne County and Benton County are in the St. Cloud area, that we are at the table as well, trying to figure out the housing needs for affordable housing and workforce housing. So excited to get that off. We have another meeting coming up here shortly. And also attended a Zoom meeting for serious workplace behaviors and protecting the protected class. A lot of great information on that, as well as to mostly geared around working to keep yourself out of lawsuits in regards to protected classes. So good information there. And as Andrew referred to, National Night to Unite is tonight. Get out, enjoy your neighborhoods. This is all geared around making sure neighbors know neighbors, because it helps law enforcement in any negative activity. This is how it all started, was to be able to protect your neighborhoods and know your neighbors so you can report things that don't look right. So exciting, and I do know where I need to be and what time, because they do it in military time, and thanks to my fellow board members, they were able to tell me what times I needed to be there. Because I'm an AM, PM person.
Oh, I'm next. Yeah, we've already talked about our budget workshop on the 18th. That evening, we had planning and zoning. Most of the items talked there were discussed today. I then met with Senator Eric Putnam and some constituents in regards to, of all things, groundwater in Haven Township, moving forward and concerns about that. I then had the community corrections luncheon on the 24th. Then again, on the 26th, I met with Eric Putnam again, who was also he's the chair of the Senate Agricultural Committee. So we met with Soil and Water Conservation District, went through some of the things that they're doing at one of the local farms. Again, centered upon groundwater. It's going to become an issue with Southeast Minnesota and what the legislature has done down there. We're looking at doing more legislative things statewide instead of just a regional central area that they're doing down at Southeast Minnesota. Again, on the 29th, I had a housing cohort with, that Rayanne talked about. I'm on a different committee on that group with Center Care that's putting that together. Then on the 30th, I was at the Palmer Park that we talked about today with the Powder Hounds, their local snowmobile club and landowners that give them access to their land for trails and stuff like that, which was a great meeting and a good function for that evening. That was all I had.
Okay, outstanding. For me, this last couple of weeks was not so much that it was scheduled, but it seemed like I just had a lot of conflicts. And so thanks for covering Elk River for me, Andrew. But I do try to highlight a few of the National Month things, and so there was so many of them that I just picked out a few favorites for this month. It's Traffic Awareness Month, which is always important. I think traffic awareness and traffic safety is really important. It is National Civility Month, and we should always try to be civil to each other. It is also National Dog Month, which is great because dogs exist, I believe, to show us what unconditional love actually looks like, and that's an important thing to remember. It is a National Shooting Sports Month, which is fantastic, and our Olympics is going pretty well. Actually, the shooters got off to a slow start, but we're picking up speed, and we're getting gold medals in areas and a lot of medals overall. And last but not least in that, it is also National Pirate Month because it's August. So those are some of the things that it is this month. We did the budget. We talked about the school zone concerns. I spent quite a bit of time on that and some other speed zone issues also, along with my traffic safety work. I'm really happy with how that we're going to be moving forward, or we're at least be taking a look at the issues about the school zone and the ISD 27 property out there. I did visit the derailment site. I was really impressed with how quickly they got that cleaned up. I went to the county fair. I attended the public accuracy testing for the election machine that actually sits right outside the office, the one that I personally used to vote in advance. I went to the forensics meeting for the forensics lab that Sherburne County participates in. And they are up to staff. They're managing to maintain full staffing, which is important. They've got a lot of work coming in. One thing that was mentioned there is that we're talking about drug use. Fentanyl is still big, methamphetamine, and that LSD is up. And some of that is believed to be attributed to the idea that there is some research going on LSD and other psychedelics being used in the treatment of certain mental health concerns like PTSI, but people should remember that dropping acid in your basement is significantly different than doing something in a laboratory situation, and that's probably going to be a detriment to your mental health. So I would probably try to discourage people from that. Let's see, Sherburne County, we got our share was covered there. And then I did review the documents from the CRP, so I'm happy with how that's going. I wasn't able to attend that meeting. The MCIT training on protected issues, I also did that. The ETAC Plan Committee that I'm on, Energy Transition Advisory, like I said before, I'm trying to bring in some more interest in the waste to energy as for the things it does for us positively, and it's worth noting, and I may have noted this before, but Switzerland has 30 of those plants. So that's a country that, if we want to look at that, they're pretty environmentally sound, so I think it's a good idea for us here in Minnesota. And the other thing that and we're going to talk about it later in the workshops, is I would like to see the Planning Commission meetings recorded and available on the website. Other than that, I think that's it for now, and unless somebody has something else?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to make one comment. We all know that when you mentioned driving responsibilities and stuff, we all know there's a lot of road construction that is going on in our area. And when a road is marked closed, it's for a reason. There was some conversation that happened in regards to around County Road 43 where people don't understand when they're not there working, why can't I drive across that bridge to get to where I need to go? So they are doing that, and it's creating quite an issue with the reason you don't go through a work zone that is closed to through traffic is because they've done a lot of work to set that road up and get it ready for the next phase. And when you go through it and you drive on it and disturb all of what they just did, you've undone and they have to redo. So don't be a part of creating the issue to delay a project because you feel the need to drive through an area that says closed. The road is closed for a reason during the road construction, and if everybody would recognize that, processes would go probably quicker. Of course, we can't control weather, but so I please ask everybody. Yes, some of these detours can be a bit long, but it is what has to happen to keep the roads updated and in safe driving conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything else?
Thank you for that PSA.
The big detour in my neighborhood involves a bridge, so I don't think you should drive through that one, definitely. So I guess at this point then, we will recess until we reconvene for our open workshop meeting. What time do we want to do that?
10:30 would work.
10:30 would be fine.
Would you prefer to be in the back room or out here?
Back room's fine.
Okay. Kathy, you okay with that? All right, we'll get her set up.
Outstanding.